Good morning and welcome to today's video. Before I get started, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to the team at Blue Mountains Mazda for supplying today's car. If you're in the Sydney or Greater Sydney area looking for a new or used Mazda, do yourself a favour and go and see the team at Blue Mountains Mazda. They're an absolute pleasure to deal with. Alright, on with the video. If you're in the market for a new hatchback, then you're spoilt for choice. And considering there are 6 flavours of the Mazda 3, this is no exception. What we have today is the Mazda 3 SP25 GT. That means it comes in second from the top of the Mazda 3 family tree. That gives us a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder motor, making 138 kilowatts and 250 newton meters of torque. That power is sent to the front wheels via a 6-speed automatic gearbox. Now I know what you're thinking, those numbers aren't overly inspiring. However, to be honest, for what this car is, which is a city car or a highway cruiser, they're more than adequate. So when you're driving around the city, getting up to speed at any of our nation's normal speed limits, it's perfectly fine. You can actually get there quite swiftly. Even on the highway, overtaking manoeuvres are very simple. Just right foot down, it kicks down a few gears, and away it goes. Speaking of that, we'll get straight into the gearbox. Now I'm always a manual gearbox fan, but I have to give credit where credit's due. And this application of the 6-speed automatic is actually really well done. It's never hunting for gears, it just picks the right one, sticks with it, and more often than not, it's the right choice. When you're driving around the city, you never notice its application. It simply goes up and down the gears as needed, really smoothly, really quietly, no fuss. And if you want to take over the gearbox's operation yourself, you can. You've got steering wheel mounted paddles, and you can just move the gear selector over to the right, and of course pulling back on the stick will send the gear up, pushing it forward will push the gear down. You do also have sport mode, which if you activate this, all it does is hold on to the gears for a little bit longer. It's really it. But honestly, I don't really see why you would need to take over controls yourself. It's very good at choosing the right gear for the selected situation that you're in. Now let's move to the interior. Because we're in the SP25 GT, we have heated front leather seats, we have dual zone climate control, 9-speaker Bose stereo system, the 7-inch infotainment system that we've come to expect from basically all Mazdas. We have a heads-up display, which the screen flips up as you start the car to display your speed, and also it's linked in with the traffic sign recognition system, which displays the speed limit for the area that you're driving in. You also get storage options galore, which I think helps make this car feel roomier than it really might be, because you're not surrounded by clutter. You also get 308 litres of cargo space. Now if that number doesn't really make too much sense with you, it means that you can either fit your weekly shopping or you can fit yourself in there, whichever one you want. Back to the interior, you get this beautiful chunky leather steering wheel. All the touch points are really well appointed, and I think you'll agree the colour palette that Mazda have used in here is really pleasing. It's a classy place to be. I do admit the lashings of piano black could become an issue as fingerprints start to take hold and dust and all that sort of stuff, but especially off the showroom floor, and right now in this example, it looks really nice. Now back to the traffic sign recognition system. This system itself works really well. It sees the speed limit signs on the side of the road and it will then project it on the heads-up display so you know what you should be doing. The only issue is that here in New South Wales at least, we have a lot of speed signs that have multiple speeds on there depending on time of day. So you might be in an 80k zone, but during school hours it's a 40k zone. What the Mazda will do is pick the lowest speed. So you'll be driving along and all of a sudden it thinks you're in a 40k zone when you're not, and it'll then have a little bit of a freak out that you're now doing 80 and a 40. That's not really a knock on the system itself. I think it's more a knock on how we use speed signs here, but that's just something to be aware of. The 7-inch infotainment system, it works really well. As I say, it's the same with all Mazdas at the moment, so it's basically the same unit I have in my MX-5. Because there is so much more dash area in this car, being a much larger car than the MX-5, it does feel small in comparison to how it looks in my car. But once again, it works well, the navigation works, it's all smooth, crisp. There are some people out there that aren't a massive fan of Mazda's MZD, however you pronounce it, infotainment system, but I honestly think it works just fine. There's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto at this stage, however, as is known, there will be an update available by your dealership come 2019. Now the most important thing, what's the SP25 GT like to drive? Well, in a word, comfortable. So I've had this car for the entire weekend and we've done a lot of highway driving, and honestly on the highway this thing is amazing. It's so quiet, it just wafts along, the gearbox is never hunting, the engine doesn't feel like it's struggling. overall it's just a very comfortable car to cruise along in. You do also have iStop in this car, and I cannot stand that. Thankfully, however, you can just press the button to turn it off, so it's not too much of an issue. I really don't know how much fuel that would even save. Now, speaking of fuel, Mazda says that this will get 6.1 litres per 100k on their super urban cycle, whatever that may mean. Now, considering the majority of my weekend has been on the highway, I'm averaging 7.5. It's just ticked over to 7.6. So take Mazda's numbers maybe with a grain of salt. I mean, 7.5 is still impressive. However, I would have thought it'd be a little bit better if they're saying that 6.1 is something that's achievable. Just something to be aware of. You also have a 51 litre fuel tank, so you will get a lot of distance out of this car. NVH is honestly at a minimum. Unless you're going over some really coarse roads, you're not going to notice any tyre roar, you don't notice any wind noise outside. Steering feel is alright. Once again, this isn't going to be a backroad smasher or a track toy or anything like that. So what it is meant for, it does really well. I need to keep emphasising that point. So if you need a car to shuffle the kids around, or you just want a car for city driving, or perhaps you want to do, say, the Sydney to Melbourne run, this is a really good car for that. It's comfortable, it's quiet, you have the Bose stereo to keep you company if you want. It has Bluetooth, it has all the mod cons. We do have some USB ports, up the front here, just underneath the climate controls. You do have a 12-volt socket in the centre cubby here, so you're well equipped. It's a car that you can spend a lot of time behind the wheel. Even as a passenger, there's plenty of leg room. So once again, I know I'm coming from an MX-5, which is basically a shoebox, but it does amaze me just how well equipped and well appointed this car is. As I say, even if you're a taller driver at over 6 foot, there's plenty of room for you, there's room for passengers behind you, there's storage. I mean, honestly, I don't know what more you could want from this car. Maybe more power, but once again, that's sort of irrelevant, isn't it? This car, you're not buying it because you want something with a lot of power. You just want to be comfortable, you want to be able to do your shopping, highway runs, school runs, all that, and this does it really well. Granted, if you want a little bit more of the safety features, the Estina is probably worth a look in, just because it has lane departure warning, lane keep assist, if that sort of thing is of interest to you. Personally, for me, it's not. So if I had to pick a Mazda 3, I think it actually would be this one. Now, you can't like absolutely everything about a car, so I want to pick 3 things that I've really liked and 3 things that I haven't. We'll get the negativity out of the way and start with the things that I haven't liked. Number 1 has to be the heads-up display. And the reason I'm saying that is just purely for this flip-up screen. Now, in the Mazda 6, the heads-up display was really well done. It was projected onto the windscreen, it was very clear, it was very useful. It also showed you things like your turn-by-turn directions when you're using satellite navigation. Here, all it does is show you your speed and whatever traffic sign the system's picked up on. Now, the only benefit to using this flip-up screen is that you can wear polarized lenses and you'll still be able to see it perfectly clear. However, I just really don't like the screen. It feels tacky. I wish you could store it away. Number 2 is the gauge cluster. It just feels like a weird mix, that they've got different fonts here and there. There's not a lot of information there, which, once again, Mazda may have decided this demographic aren't interested in, but for me it was just something that didn't quite sit right. And lastly, and this might seem very trivial, but it's the amount of effort required to shut things like the boot. Now, if you're going to be using this car every day, then that might be something that's of concern to you. The reason I bring that up is because there have been multiple times over the weekend that I've actually been caught out where the door open symbol's on and I have no idea why, and open and close the door like a madman for a while on the side of the road and still can't figure out until I trick the boot. And even though I thought it was shut, it was actually just slightly ajar. So it does take quite a lot of effort to close. In saying that, if they're the 3 things I'm going to pick on, it shows you it's a pretty good car. Now, let's move on to the things that I do love about this car. Number 1, how comfortable it is. So I touched on the heated front leather seats before. Honestly, these seats are unreal. You can just belt out hours on the highway and you feel refreshed, no dramas at all. You can set it up to exactly how you like it because you do have lumbar support. Just really well done. Number 2 is actually the steering wheel. Now, it might be a weird thing to choose, but you use it every single time you're in the car, I hope. This is a really nice, chunky leather unit. It feels great in the hands. It has all the controls simply laid out. Once again, very typical Mazda, but very well done. I mean, I like the fact that they do just have the same recipe throughout their cars because they got it right. And number 3 is space. Once again, you just feel like there's a lot of space available to you. That includes all the storage options. That includes the rear seats that can fold flat. Just everything about this car. It's nice and roomy, it's airy. A very pleasant place to be. So thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It's always nice to see that you like the content that I'm creating. Also want to give a big thank you to the team at Blue Mountains Mazda for lending me the car for the weekend. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.